What's up, everyone, and welcome to my ranking of all the Disney Plus TV series that have been released so far. I'm going to be excluding the Lego series as well as some of the animated shorts that were just released individually in the final season of the Clone Wars. I'm going to be rewatching that entire series and then I will place it in this list sometime before Skeleton Crew comes out. So without further ado, let's dive in. So first of all, we have the first season of The Mandalorian, which came out in 2019. This is created by Jon Favreau, who did Iron Man. He's done a bunch of the live action adaptations for Disney, like The Jungle Book, and I think he did The Lion King. This is a fantastic series. I think this first season alone is just some great TV. You have like sort of a plot that's stitched together, but for the most part, it's just an adventure of the week story, and it feels very Western inspired, the way a bounty hunter would work his way through some of those old TV serials of like the 1950s. It definitely has that Star Wars feel. There's some really great puppets and great costumes, makeup effects, and of course, this is where we get introduced to the child, who we eventually find out is Grogu, a fantastic puppet that's very emotional and very expressive. They put a lot of work into that, and it really shows. There are some really great episodes in here with some really well-directed action. Pedro Pascal is just such a great... he's not really a character until the end. He's more of a cipher. But you kind of start to get like this attachment towards him and Grogu, this like reluctant father type, which we also see Pedro Pascal do in The Last of Us. I think it's a really good series, and I think that first season is incredibly rewatchable. It works really well. The finale is fantastic. It's very satisfying, and it definitely leaves you wanting more from these characters. So for the first season of The Mandalorian, I think I'm going to put that... I think that's an A-class. That is a fantastic season of TV. It's a great set of, I think, episodes that stand on their own, but also build to the inevitable finale. It's a whole lot of fun. I love Werner Herzog saying, "I like to see the baby." I think he's a great character. Dr. Pershing, who we eventually get in other shows, it sets up a lot of good threads going forward, and I really like it a lot. From there, we go on to the second season of The Mandalorian, with a absolutely stunning first episode. This whole crate dragon sequence, the letterbox kind of like going away, and you get the full screen. It's great. It's really interesting. I like the idea of kind of giving more representation of what the Tusken Raiders are. We just kind of saw them as like, oh, they're just a savage, sand people. But I like that we kind of get them... we get introduced to them as like this aspect of a tribe, and the language, the great like sign language. I think... I forget the actor's name, but he just won an Academy Award a few years ago for Coda. He was really great in that, and I believe he's been the language coordinator for a lot of like these Star Wars shows that have incorporated sign language and ASL. There's some really good episodes in here. I think the second season, it's pretty solid. There's not a whole lot I can remember apart from the Ahsoka showing up. There was the Frog Lady episode. That was just another like cute adventure of the week. You get crossed with Bo-Katan, and that's really interesting. I like Katie Sackhoff coming back. She voiced her in the Clone Wars, so it's really cool to see that merging of live action and animation. It's a solid season, and I think it's a little clunky in its inclusion of like Ming-Na Wen's character and Tamora Morrison's Boba Fett. I think they're both kind of just added because they're like, well, we're gonna do a Boba Fett show eventually, but we need an in. Where do we start? So I appreciate what they were doing there. I think some of it was a bit clunky in its setup, its representation. And I think the finale is incredible. Despite being very pandery, the people working on set for the finale were believed Plo Koon. I think that's how I pronounce it. Plo Koon was supposed to be the Jedi that comes and gets Grogu. But that was the way they hid it, so that it was actually Luke Skywalker. Some pretty great CGI, but I really would have preferred if they just got a younger actor who looked like Mark Hamill. I think I would have appreciated that a lot more. But otherwise, I feel like the ending of season 2 is incredibly emotional. It's very heartfelt. I was brought to tears, and I thought this was going to be the end of the series. I think that would have been a great, we're saying goodbye. We had these two characters who got really close and went on an adventure together, and now they have to part ways. I think that is a beautiful ending. I think you see Din Djarin, Pedro Pascal's character, getting changed through, this like parental role that he was thrown into. I think he expresses it really well. The few times we get him to remove his helmet, we get, of course, the Pedro Pascal money shots. The few times he's actually in the suit now. But he's really great in this role, and I really like it. And as much as I wanted it to just end here, I think there was part of me that was like, but what if him and Grogu got back together somehow? What if? So for the second season of The Mandalorian, I think I'm going to put that probably at the A, but above the first season. I think that finale is great. It's a whole lot of fun. The whole season is just a great expansion on what the first season was, and I really like it a lot. So from there, we're going to move on to The Bad Batch. Season 1 of The Bad Batch is pretty solid. It's a good spin-off of the Clone Wars animated series. It has a lot of really interesting ideas of the transition of power from the Republic to the Empire and what they did with the clones. I think it's really interesting in that way. However, I feel like the Adventure of the Week kind of wore thin a little bit. This first season is a bit long in the tooth. There are episodes here and there that are good ways of building the world, building, the galaxy at this time period, but it also feels like we're kind of spinning our wheels. We're kind of, treading through well-worn territory. But I do remember this first season ending really well, and I think the destruction of the Camino, to Poca City, it's a great episode. It's well animated. The animation for the show is fantastic. It looks really good. It's similar to the Clone Wars aesthetic, but it's more detailed, more lighting, more shadows, more expressive features. It's a blast, and I really like this first season quite a bit. D. Bradley Baker as all 5 of the clones, just some great work, just fantastic acting. So for season 1 of The Bad Batch, I think I would put it somewhere. It's a solid C. It's not terrible. It's good. There's some really interesting stuff, but I think the show gets better on as it goes along. So that brings us to the first series of Star Wars Visions. This is an anthology animated series that is animated by a whole bunch of studios from around the world. I think this first series, it's mostly Asian studios. The second season, I believe, gets into, there's like a Brazilian studio and a studio from Spain. But this is really interesting. Like, there is that Star Wars aesthetic is still there. It's recognizable, but it's got this like gritty manga style, this like really clean anime style at times. It's very eclectic. It's very wide in its use of animation, and I think while some episodes may be better than others, there's not really a whole lot of episodes in this first series that I can remember a whole lot. I think the duel, I remember being really good. It says Village Bride and The Ninth Jedi are very top rated. I don't remember those ones being that memorable. Maybe I just need to go back and rewatch them. They're good. They're good animation. They look really nice. It has the Star Wars aesthetic, but at the end of the day, I think it's just sort of like, it is. So I'm gonna put that first series of Visions right underneath The Bad Batch at C. It's good. Could definitely be better. Okay. So now we've reached the Book of Boba Fett, the 7-episode series from Robert Rodriguez. This show is definitely hit or miss. It's got some really high highs and some kind of weird, questionable decisions. I think the use of the Bacta tank for flashback feels very antiquated. It feels it's one of those TV tropes that I've just not liked. Like, it's like, oh, he's back in the Bacta tank, now we get another flashback. It feels like the audience already knows what's happening next, and you kind of don't want that. This show is also Mandalorian season 2.5. We get an entire episode, chapter 5, Return of the Mandalorian, of Din with the Darksaber and going to see Grogu, and we even get that followed up in the 6th episode. We get more of that, and then we kind of clumsily include them into the finale, which, say what you want about the finale, I think the action is a whole lot of fun. I think the vehicle stuff is definitely where Robert Rodriguez struggles. There's the scene that's been memed to death, the scooter scenes, the 15-mile-an-hour chase. There's a lot of that silly stuff that doesn't quite work, but I think otherwise it feels like a good tie-in to The Mandalorian. It's not as good. It's definitely not as good, but I think, I think it's a C. I think we can put just under that first season of The Bad Batch and right before Visions, Series 1. That's a good spot for the Book of Boba Fett. Temuera Morrison's great as Boba Fett. I loved him as Jango Fett in the prequels. He's a goofball, and I would like to see more of Boba Fett. Maybe under a different director. I think Robert Rodriguez is a little limited in what he can do with this, but I want more Temuera Morrison. And that brings us to Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is the series created by Joby Harold. It's a good series. It's a little long. I think I would have liked this maybe as like a 2.5-hour movie. I think you could definitely get the entire narrative that they wanted with the Inquisitors and with, the time with Obi-Wan and Leia together. I think it's a good show. I think the sets are nice. It's great to see Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader. I think he's a great Vader in this. That scene with the mask parted, the image here, that is just a haunting scene, and it gives me goosebumps anytime I watch it. But overall, I think seeing Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan is a great way to kind of honor the prequel trilogy. It's kind of quiet and reflective at times, and I really appreciate that. I think Ewan McGregor does a lot with his face, and it really pays off here. It kind of clumsily bumps into the original trilogy. I think having this adventure so close to Luke feels weird. It feels like this should be some sort of trauma that he remembers, like talking about, oh God, remember when that Sith tried to kill me? I don't even know what a Sith is at this point now. So I don't know. It feels like we could have maybe not included him in the finale. We could have just included Leia, and that would have been fine. I think the inclusion of Luke Skywalker was a bit pandery, and it doesn't work. I think Luke Skywalker in the background works, but I think, giving him the close-ups of Luke Skywalker's day-to-day life is not what we needed from this series. So I'm going to put Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think it's also a C. I think it's a very high C. I think it's better than the first season of The Bad Batch. It's good. It's definitely something I like, but they really hyped this up as this is going to be the next Duel of the Fates. It was good. There's good fight choreography. The Vader Obi-Wan fight at the end is more emotion than it is, spectacle. I kind of appreciate that. It makes the whole thing feel smaller, but maybe don't build it up to be something it's not. So after Obi-Wan Kenobi, we got Andor in 2022. This is peak Star Wars. This first season of Andor is fantastic. It's written almost like it's not a Star Wars story, but it's set within the Star Wars universe. And I think that definitely gives it better ground to work with, because it felt more like a World War II drama than it felt like, space opera Star Wars. Which I think is great, because there's still those touches of, the technology, the weapons, the TIE fighters screaming by. There's still all that Star Wars goodness, but it definitely focuses on the characters first and foremost. I think splitting that first season up into 3 small arcs, the heist, the prison, and the rebellion, I think that is a great way to tell this story. And I have really high hopes for how the second season's going to be turning up. Sounds like we're going to get a lot of time jumps, and that might be a bit different than the first season. Maybe they're going to structure it in, multiple 3-episode arcs set over the course of several years, but we'll see. For now, I honestly think Andor is the best thing to come out of Disney+. It is fantastic. It is great. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you can feel the vibes of the rebellion and standing up to oppressors, and there's so much great stuff in there. I truly love Andor. So now let's spend a quick moment on Young Jedi Adventures. I've watched about 2 or 3 episodes of this. It's cute. It's a kid's show. It's definitely not for me. I'm not the target demographic of this, but in no way am I going to poo-poo on this, because it's beautiful. It's really good animation. I think kids are pretty blessed right now with the amount of animation they have, and it's nice to get, Star Wars programs for kids that are maybe not ready for the PG Star Wars movies. It's really hard to rank it off of just having seen a couple episodes, but honestly, it's a B, man. It's good. It's cute. It's like Bluey. It's like you learn stuff. All right, so Series 2 of Visions. There are a lot more episodes in this season that I think I resonated with. I think the I Am Your Mother story from, I think that's Aardman that did that one. It's very cute. There's a lot of heart in these stories. Not that there wasn't in the first series, but I think there was a lot more memorable moments. Screecher's Reach is one of the most terrifying Star Wars stories I've ever seen. It's highly rewatchable. It's a whole lot of fun, and it's genuinely spooky. The Sith, that's a really well animated episode. Honestly, it's impressive to have seen all these different studios from all across the world that all appreciate Star Wars this much, and I think that's kind of how I felt. Like there wasn't anything that changed my life, but I really appreciate what the teams have been doing for this, and I hope they keep doing this. This is a really cool series. I think I'm going to put that probably right above that first series. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it above the Book of Boba Fett. Right underneath Bad Batch Season 1. So Ahsoka is basically Star Wars Rebels Season 5, but I'm totally okay with that. I think the chemistry between David Tennant's Huyang and Rosario Dawson is fantastic. I like the cast. I like Balin and Shin. Despite the unfortunate passing of Ray Stevenson, I hope they do recast this character because it's very fascinating, and I think a lot of the credit can go to Ray Stevenson for making that presence really felt. He has a gravitas when he steps on screen. It was really cool to see Lars Mikkelsen as live-action Thrawn. That's a great carryover from Rebels. He voiced him in Rebels, so it was really cool seeing him get to be the on-screen version. I liked the lightsaber choreography. I think Filoni is definitely getting a lot better at filming action in live action. He's, of course, a great storyboarder of animation. It's cool that he's learning more, and we're going to probably see that pay off when he directs the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. I think the 8 episodes kind of worked here better than it has for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series being 6 episodes. I think that would have been a better movie. This I actually enjoyed as an 8-part series. I think week to week watching it, there was a lot of little Easter eggs to dig out. And that 5th episode where we get Hayden Christensen returning as Anakin Skywalker once again was just fantastic. How we got to see, sometimes you get a little lost. I think the ending is satisfying, but also I think the action, the fighting the zombies, I could care less. Like, I think the zombies were interesting at first, but then once we're fighting them, I was like, okay, yeah, that's zombies. That's whatever. I liked this though. I think the ships, the models look cool. I think the new sound that we have for that intergalactic hyperspace travel, that's really neat. I think it's genuinely up there with The Mandalorian. I think I would probably put it between season 2 and 1 of The Mandalorian, up there in the A tier. Of course, I almost forgot Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. This is a 6-part story that tells 3 episodes dedicated to Ahsoka Tano and 3 episodes to Count Dooku, and we get to kind of see them at the end of their time as the Jedi. We get some Ahsoka time post-Jedi, and we get to see the decay of Dooku's trust with the Jedi Order. It was really cool to see Count Dooku as a Jedi Knight with his apprentice Qui-Gon and out on a mission with Mace Windu. And slowly starting to have less and less faith in the Jedi and in the Republic, and you kind of see him get disillusioned, and it's really cool. We get this fight with Yaddle, voiced by I think Bryce Dallas Howard. Great use of Yaddle, and that's kind of a great explanation of like, why did we see Yaddle in The Phantom Menace but not further? Well, Dooku killed her. It's a very emotional scene. I think it's really well done. Probably the best of the series, that face-off. I would probably put this pretty highly. And I think I'm going to put that in the B category. I'll put that above Young Jedi Adventure because I've actually finished Tales of the Jedi, and it's actually a series I've watched 2 or 3 times now. It's a really good one. Speaking of Tales, we have Star Wars Tales of the Empire. This is another one that is kind of similar. We get 3 episodes dedicated to one character and 3 to another. This one is a young Morgan Elsbeth and a Barris Offee, who was a former Jedi who became a Sith, and we kind of get to see her being disillusioned by the ideology of the Sith, and we get to see this sort of revenge path that Morgan Elsbeth goes on. It's a really good way of merging into the live action shows like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and the animation is just beautiful. There is like stunning shots that it's uncanny. It looks lifelike. So I think I'm going to put that just underneath Tales of the Jedi. I think the Barris Offee stuff was interesting, but I think it could have been done better. Nothing can really top that Count Dooku episode with Yaddle. It's really, really good stuff. So season 2 of The Bad Batch is a very good season of TV, but it is a little bit long. There are filler episodes that definitely don't feel necessary. We get some cameos from characters like Gungi. It's good TV. It definitely isn't my favorite of the seasons. I think it's a good way of introducing your overall big bad in the Jimmy Simpson voiced character of can't even remember his name anymore. That's okay. It culminates in probably the most emotional episode of the series, Plan 99, where, spoilers, a character does not make it, and it is devastating. And that was a really good way of ending the season, but otherwise I think it kind of ebbed and flowed. My interest would wane a little bit with these filler episodes. They weren't bad. They're still good TV, but you know, it's sort of like, okay, I know we have another plot going on, and I kind of want to, continue that plot because I'm interested. I don't want to do, a pod racing episode, even though the racing episode with Tech was fascinating. It was a lot of fun. So for The Bad Batch Season 2, I don't think it's better than the first season. I think it is better than Visions, so I'm going to put that squarely right here underneath the first season. And rounding out the end of The Bad Batch, we have the third season. I think this season is fantastic. I think every episode was utilized perfectly, not a wasted moment of television. every single episode building to the next, and I was incredibly satisfied. I think the growth of these characters has been remarkable. I think seeing Omega definitely change from this naive girl to this girl who definitely understands what war is and, what we do for war. We fight for our friends. We help those in need. We, don't harm animals. I think there's a great messages of animal cruelty in this. She befriends this beast in this third season, Batcher, who is still alive at the end, and it was very fun to see that. We also get Asajj Ventress popping in for, I think, an episode or two. It's a good series of TV. It's a great closure to, it doesn't overstay its welcome. And we're done. It's great. I do like it more than the first season, and honestly, I think I like it more than Obi-Wan Kenobi and these two. I think it is a B. It is absolutely... Hey, move. It is at the top of the B tier. It is great TV. It's a series I'm definitely going to look forward to rewatching because I know I missed things by losing attention at the filler episodes, and I'm sure there's stuff in there that is beneficial to the overall story. So I'm excited to go back. So Season 3 of The Mandalorian, I think, is not my favorite, but it definitely has some of my favorite moments. It definitely becomes less of a show about the Mandalorian and more just, this is the New Republic files. We get some episodes in Coruscant. We get Din and Grogu going to an Outer Rim planet. We get this whole, fight with Giancarlo Esposito. We get Ahmed Best, the person who was Jar Jar Binks in the prequel trilogy. He comes back as Kelleran Beck, the Jedi, who saves Grogu. I think that was a great way of, kind of giving him a, hey, we see you, Ahmed Best. You're a great guy. Please stick around for as long as you can. I think the Lizzo and Jack Black episode, in hindsight, I definitely didn't care for. I think it was fun to have them and Christopher Lloyd all in the same episode. But this episode didn't really contribute anything to the overall story. It's definitely a weak season, and I think it ends in a way that's very satisfying. Din has his ranch, the cowboy finally has a plot of land, and his little boy's out fishing for frogs. It's very Western, very tropey, but I liked it. I think it's a good season of television. Not my favorite season of television, but it's good. I think I would put that somewhere in the B. Yeah, under the third season of The Bad Batch. I think it's good, but it definitely could be better. Which brings us to everyone's favorite, The Acolyte, released this year in 2024, created by Leslie Headland. It is a fun little mystery thriller that is a bit overlong. I think a lot of the narrative details get hand-waved a bit, but I do appreciate all the combat, the lightsaber choreography, the cool wire work. It's all very fun stuff, and I think a second season of this would really solidify this as one of the best, because I think there's some really great ideas here that deconstruct some of the prequels. However, the dialogue can be a bit clunky, and it's probably the campiest Star Wars has been, which to Star Wars has always been campy, but the camp has always been a little bit more subdued. It's always been more space opera before camp. I was a big fan of the finale. I liked how it ended, even if some of the character decisions did feel a little out of left field. I would have liked to see a little more development with that, but I was satisfied with this one. I think I would definitely put The Acolyte somewhere in the B. I think just under that third season of The Mandalorian. So that is my completed list. We have nothing in the D. I don't think that anything that has been released has been absolutely terrible. But, there's a lot of mediocre Star Wars stuff out there. So it's, I am excited to see where the Skeleton Crew fits into this list as well. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not expecting a whole lot from it. It's got very Gremlins, E.T. vibes, and I dig it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. What did you think of my ranking? Let me know in the comments, and as always, I've been Barista Bran, and may the Force be with you.